Okay, so we are live. Let me share my screen. Okay, so what today's lead course POTD is maximum productiveness between two pairs. So what we need to do is we have been given an array nums. We need to select four numbers from it A, B, C, D such that A into B minus. There's a correction here. And we need to select four numbers A, B, C, D such that A into B minus C into D is the largest among all the elements in an array, and we need to return this sum of this like equation of A into B minus C into D. So how we can do this question is, first of all we can sort our array in ascending order, and then at first we can just do a product of. Okay. So how we can do this question is, first of all, to get A into B minus C into D as a maximum, we need to maximize our A into B and minimize our C into D. So we can just do like do a multiplication of largest number, second largest number, and we can subtract smallest number into second smallest number. That we can do using the sorting. Like, let me do it. First of all, we can sort our array. And we can simply return our largest number into our second largest number minus our smallest number into our second smallest number. Okay, so let's try running it. Okay, so let's try something. Okay, so it passed all our test cases. So this was all for our lead course POTT. So now over to you, Sangam.
See, guys, the question that we have been asked today in today's GFG PODT is actually a kind of very simple one in a sense. So now let's just see what is this question is about. See, given an array is given to us and the size of the array is n. Now I have to find the ZOR of each subarray, and after I have found the ZOR of the each subarray, I just have to find the result of the ZOR of these array and then return that as an answer. So what does this means? So let's say 1, 2 and 3 is my subarray. So this is our array. So the number of subarrays that is we are going to get in this case is, which are going to start from 1 is 1, 2 and 1, 2, 3. For 2 which are going to start from will be 2 and 3, and for those which are going to start from 3 will be only 3. Now in this case I just have to find the ZOR of these all elements. So in this case, if we do the ZOR of 1 it will be 1, for in this case if we do the 1 or 2 it will be 3, for in this case if we do the ZOR of 1, 2 and 3 it will be 0. In this case it will be about 2, it will be about 1, and it will be about 3. So the result that I'm getting in this case is 1, 3, 0, 2, 1 and 3. Then finally I also have to do the ZOR of the result that I am getting. Okay, so this is the result that I'm getting, and then after doing the ZOR of this I just have to simply return the answer. So if we see, these two will be cancelled out, these two will be cancelled out, and if we do the ZOR of 0 and 2, the result will be 2. So that is what we have to return. Now before we go in depth about this question, just understand that what the XOR table is all about. See, if the inputs are same, then the result will be 0, and if the inputs are different, that is in this case you can say it is 0 and it is 1, or it is 1 and it is 0, then and only then the input will be 1. Other than that, if the inputs are same, the output will be 0. Now let us assume this is our array that is given to us, and as I have drawn here, these are going to be, it is actually a pattern which include all the sub arrays that I can generate from this array. What I have done in this, the sub array that are going to start from 1 I have written in this case. If you want to see the sub array which are going to start from 2, we can look at this line. If you want from start from 3, we can look at this line, and so on and so forth. Now the next thing that I have to do is, if you see carefully here one thing, just note down one thing here. If the array elements, that is if there are two elements, this is first element, this is second element in our sub array, if they are same, then the output will be 0. So what does this means? If the array elements are 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, and so on and so forth, that is if the value is same, then the output that we are going to get is 0. Okay, so now see one thing again here. They are saying that if the input are 0, then the output will be 1. So what does this mean? That is if the input is 1 2 2 1 3 2, that is they, if they are not equal, then the output will be 1. Okay, and now in this sub array, in this whole array and the subarray that we have generated here, I just have to find the frequency of element. And if I am finding the frequency of element in which the frequency is even, what does this mean? Let's say the frequency is even in this case, because it is 6 times we have concluded 1. So in this case, as we have already discussed, that in XOR table, if the values are equal, then the answer will be 0. So if I do the XOR of these, the answer I'm going to get is 0. If I do the XOR of this, the answer I'm going to get is 0. If I do the XOR of these, the answer I'm going to get is 0. So that is what I have to calculate in this sub array. I just have to calculate the frequency of element. Now, if the frequency of element is even, then it just means that its XOR will be 0, and we don't need to include this thing. Similarly, if the frequency is odd, then we can say yes, we are going to get something in our output. As in this case, it is 3. As in this case, it will be, if you see 1 1 and 0 1, it will be what? 2. So here we are getting something. But if the frequency is equal, that is if it is 1 and 1, then the output will be 0, and we don't need to include that thing. So via this equation, this is what we are calculating here. What I have done in this case is just look at this line. Okay, here I have written 6 5 4 3 2 1 with the corresponding to these value. Now why I have written 6 with respect to 1? If you see carefully, the sub array which are going to include 1, the total count of them are only 6, which are from here to here. Similarly, the sub arrays which are going to start from 2 are only 5, as you can see from here to here. Similarly, for 3, it is 4. That is the subarray which are going to start from 3 are only 4. Similarly, the subarray that are going to start from 4 are only 3. Similarly, the subarray that are going to start from 5 are only 2. And the subarray which are going to start from 6 are only 1. So that is what I have done in this case. I have just calculate the frequency of element in which the subarray will start from these given element. Now in the second line, as you can see, it is stating 1 2 3 4 5 6, like it is in a serial order. So what does this means? It means that a given number is included in how many sub arrays, how many kind of sub arrays. So if you see, Here the 6 is included in 6 subarray. It will be the subarray of itself, then it will be the subarray with 5, it will be subarray with 4, it will be a subarray with 3, it will be a subarray with 2, and it will be a subarray with 1. So here the total count that we are getting is 6. Similarly for 4 5, it will be 5 instances or 5 subarrays in which our 5 will be included. So you are seeing a pattern here. What I have done in this case is, in the initial line I have calculated the subarray which are going to start from my given number, and in the second line I have calculated the times my this number will be included in a subarray, and this way I am going to get the count of subarrays in which these elements are going to be included. So as you can see in this term, that 1 will be included in 6 subarrays. That is, the frequency of 1 is 6. Similarly, the frequency of 5 is 10. The frequency of 3 is 12. The frequency of 4 is 12. The frequency of 5 is 10. And similarly, the frequency of 6 is 6. So as you can see in this case, the frequency of all element is even, and that is what we have to ignore, because if I go on and do the XOR of this whole subarray, what I'm going to get is just 0 as an answer. So there is a strategy that we have devised in this case to detect this thing. See, if the number is odd, if it is multiplying with odd, then and only then we are going to get a frequency which will be odd. Other than that, if the number is even and I am multiplying it with even, I am going to get even as an answer. If the number is odd and it is multiplying with even, I am going to get even as an answer. If the number is even and the multiplying with odd, I am going to get even as an answer. So this is the case that I have to keep an eye on. Now, what we are going to do in our subarray, we are going to find if the given index is even or not. So as you can see, if it would be even, then we are simply going to ignore it. Okay, then the last thing that we need is, if I subtract the size of the subarray with the current index, is the value that I'm getting is also odd. If it is, then and only then I'm going to include my that subarray in our subarray XOR sum, and then and only then we are going to simply return our answer. So understand the thing that we are doing, guys, here. If the elements are equal, the thing that we are going to get is 0 as output, and if the elements are not equal, the thing that we are going to get as output will be odd. Okay, and as we have already discussed in this case, that if the elements are equal, going to get 0, elements are equal, going to get 0, and if the elements are different, then and only then we are going to get an output. So that is what we need in this case. Now in our subarray, we are just finding the frequency of a certain character. Now if the frequency is even, if the frequency of a character is even, then we know that its XOR will be 0, and we don't want to include that thing. So we are only finding the elements whose frequency is odd. Okay, and the way to find this frequency is via these two equations, in which I am seeing that if the current index is odd, and if I subtract the current index size from the length of the subarray, is I'm getting the value as odd. If it is, then that subarray would have XOR which is not equal to 0. And when I find the cumulative sum of all those subarray, then that would be our answer. So understand this thing, that is what we are doing here. This is the logic. To find the subarrays whose sum is odd, we are using this formula here, and this way we are going to get our answer. So see now here, first of all, what we have done is we have taken an answer variable in which we are going to store our answer. Then we are doing a for loop in which we are traversing through each element. And here we are finding if the current element frequency is odd or not. So here what I am doing is I am just finding the index of the element. If that index is odd and the last element index is also odd. If that is the case, then do the XOR of that element. Other than that, simply ignore it. Okay, and if we submit this code out, you can see it will work perfectly fine. So as you can see guys, it is working perfectly fine. So with that, today we have solved both the GFG and Leetcode PODT. We hope that you guys be able to understand it and be able to solve the code. With that, over to you, Shivam.
So yeah guys, thanks for joining us. We will catch you up tomorrow.